This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Hi, and welcome back to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with your host, David Charlton. Thankfully, right now, I'm over my bout of COVID and slowly getting back into my regular routines. I'm excited, yet a little bit worried about my first run, which I'm going to do later today. I'll let you know how I get on. I'd imagine it's likely to be a jog come walk. Though I've also got to recognise that actually I'm a lot better off than a lot of people. Lots of people have been far worsely affected by COVID, so I've got to be grateful for that, which I am. In terms of the podcast, today's episode marks the last of the short mini-series of takeaway episodes to celebrate the fact that we've reached a century of episodes on the podcast. The other 3 episodes have been hugely popular, and I'm quietly confident this one's going to go down well with you too. If you do go on to find it useful, please do take 20 seconds out. That's right, just 20 seconds out. I'd be really grateful for this. And please do leave us a positive rating, 5 stars if you can, and review favourably too with some kind comments. The more that we receive, the more people that we're going to reach and we're going to positively impact with the podcast. Now though, on with the show. Again, as I mentioned, you're going to hear many fantastic takeaways from the guests to date. This time, the podcast is going to be related to rugby, tennis, cricket, combat sports, general tips for athletes and for coaches too. We're even going to have some refereeing input too. Enjoy it.
I think the big one, and it's kind of, I start to not like the saying in a way because it's so used so much, but to enjoy the process, enjoy what you're doing and don't get too caught up in the outcome. Because if you're too outcome focused, you're then going to put a lot of pressure on yourself and a lot more things can go wrong. Whereas if you just enjoy, going out for your run and whatever, and, especially in running, I find a lot of the time, if people just leave the watches at home, that's when they run the best because they're not being dictated to by a few numbers on the wrist. They just run the way they feel and they're happy in the running and they run well. So, just kind of focus on the process rather than the outcome, and the outcome will just look after itself. Other ones, again, just a similar theme, just remember your why. Why are you doing it? Most of the time it's because you enjoy what it is that you're doing. If you're not enjoying it, then why exactly are you doing it? If I wasn't enjoying running 120 mile a week, I'd be like, well, why am I even doing this? And every time something did go wrong or something was tough, I'd stop. But remember your why, whether that's because you've made a promise to somebody, you've got set yourself a challenge or whatever. And I think the third one is kind of always believe in yourself. So, for me, along the way, I've had a lot of people tell us that I wasn't good enough and I couldn't do things. But I've always had that belief deep down that I was good enough and I could do it. And every time somebody said to me that I wasn't good enough or I didn't have what it takes, that would just add fuel to that fire. And, I love proving people wrong. So I'd go out there and I'd prove them wrong and, give them the 2 fingers when I was standing on the start line and realising, it hasn't got this now. But, you've got to have that self-belief, but you've also got to be very careful that you don't cross the line into kind of overconfidence, arrogance, cockiness. Because, again, going back to my first hour marathon, I stood on that line, I was far too cocky. I was trying to run, I think it was 2:38, which is about 6-minute mile in. And I was like, that's easy, I can do that, no problem. Went off at like 5:50 pace. And I was like, I got to 6 mile, I was like, actually, this is quite hard. By 16 mile, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I wanted to stop and cry, but I made myself finish because, it was my own stupid fault. I was too cocky and I went off too fast. And the last thing I was going to do that day was, walk off the course and, not learn the lesson. So, have self-belief, but don't get too cocky.
Well, first and foremost, it's a classic response from any sportsman, but it is enjoy it. I wouldn't be here now if I didn't enjoy it. Now, there are times where I've not really enjoyed it. To be honest, you have ups and downs in your career. There are times you're thinking, I might just pack this in, but then you remember that you're not able to do anything else because you're too old to change sports and you're not clever enough to get a good job. So you're like, okay, I'll best do this. So yeah, enjoy it really. I think I'm playing with a smile on your face. And then 2, I think just work at the fundamentals of the game, and work hard at them. I think it's a classic thing, but I have seen so many people with so much talent who haven't made it purely because their eye got caught by something else, or they preferred a social life, or they had more friends than I did. They had all girls liked them when they were younger, and they didn't like me. So all that sort of stuff. And then I think, you put together the enjoyment and the hard work. And then I think the thing with me is, and it is what we're talking about now, is just get your mental prep right, Just if you're going to enjoy it and you're happy to work hard, then just make sure you don't feel pressured and stressed by it. Find a release for it. If that's to go and do something else, to play something else, whatever. Because it's easy to say enjoy it, because ultimately, I still remember the pressure playing under 8s rugby or under 9s rugby, because we were playing the final and we wanted to win, and that was pressure in itself. Yes, it was exciting, but I was nervous. And that's and I think that's it. Make sure you're doing other things and play up to other sports to make sure that if you do come to rugby or you do go to tennis or whatever it may be that you prefer, that it's enjoyable and there's a crossover and you're playing lots of different things. So for me, it's hard work, play different sports and just enjoy it. I don't think I've ever. There are times where rugby players are quite sappy in the changing room. That was a rubbish session. That was crap. Or they were moaning, and I'm a part of it. But if you wouldn't be there if you didn't enjoy it, and that's the biggest thing.
Well, firstly, I'd say you have to have an amazing work ethic if you want to strive to get to the top, wherever that is. And you have to really dedicate yourself to your craft. There are no shortcuts in life. You have to work hard, and your work ethic has to be up there. It's got to be up there with the best for you to become one of the best. So that, I would say, that would be the first thing. Work ethic is paramount importance. The second thing I would say is give your industry the respect it deserves, as I said. And that just means, but you need to put the effort in. You need to actually, for you to become expert in your industry, or as a coach, or as a sports coach, or an athlete, or a business coach, you have to work on your craft. Just like the best musicians, the best sportsmen, best sportswomen, all that kind of stuff. They really, really work at their craft, and they dedicate time and effort to actually becoming better. So giving the industry the respect it deserves is really important. You can't just turn up and think, I want to be X, Y, and Z, and it's all going to happen. Sure, people have a lot of talent in certain areas, but it goes to waste if they still don't give the industry or give their craft the respect it deserves. So that would be the second thing. And then the third thing I would say is anything's possible, but you have to think it's possible for it to happen.
I would say probably the first thing is that, believe in yourself in terms of that you're good enough to be the best that you can be in whichever sport. Obviously, with myself, it was rugby. Although, I grew up playing basketball because my whole family playing basketball. Unfortunately, I didn't go any further with basketball, but I was able to still have the same attitude, still have the same vision to try and play at the top of that sport. But I made the switch to a different sport. They say, that the goal is something that will probably always stay the same, but how you get there will always have different avenues and may change in that. And that's exactly what happened for myself in that. Secondly, I'll be, surround yourself with people who are chasing similar goals, or people that have positive attitude about their own outlooks in life and them looking to aim for the best that they can be. And lastly, don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's in your game or whether it's in anything in life. I think people will certainly think that it used to be thought of that looking for help or asking for help is a weakness. More and more people now who are looking for help. You see a lot of people who are very successful. They're very successful because they asked for help.
I'd probably say my first one would be more COVID related. I know it's easy to kind of get yourself in a negative mood to get down. I'd probably say try and get out the house at least once a day. whether that'll be a walk, a run, a cycle. Try and get out of the house, because it's easy to sit on the sofa all day, every day and do nothing and get yourself into a bit of a rut. So try and get out, get some fresh air, whether that be go to the shops or I don't know, just try and get yourself outside once a day. It really does do wonders for the mental health and to make you feel like you've actually left your house in the week rather than just sit inside and not really do anything.
Currently at the moment, like you say, we're in lockdown 3, and there's probably about 8 hours, maybe a little bit more of daylight. Mm-hmm. So especially if you can go outside during daylight, it makes a huge difference to the way you feel about yourself and your well-being, no doubt about it. And a little bit of exercise, increasing your heart rate and what have you, you just feel an awful lot better, don't you? Feel more alive.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, it's very easy to get in your head. So just do it is definitely got to be the motto there.
Yeah, well, I know it's a lot easier said than done, because I've personally had days where I haven't left the house and you don't realise, and then it comes to you going outside and you're like, oh, this is the first time I've left the house in 3 days. And that you can easily get yourself into a little rut. But I think if you're living with somebody, to be able to do something like that together is a lot easier, because then you're going out for a walk together and you have someone to do that with. If you don't want to go, they can kind of pull you outside. But yeah, I think it's more challenging when you are there isolating on your own. So yeah, I would suggest just kind of pick yourself up and try and get yourself outside, go and explore new places, whether that be you drive to a country park and you go and explore new things and appreciate the outdoors. Yeah, it's cold, but grab a hat and a coat, like go have some fun. Change of scenery, really.
Yeah, there's something in that definitely about having fun into the mix.
Yeah.
So much negativity out there, isn't there? If you look at the news and everything else.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think it's hard at the minute, isn't it? Because the cases are rising, things are getting worse. And as you say, that's all that they kind of spread over the media. So it is very down and gloomy. But yeah, it is hard. And it's kind of hard to kind of stay motivated and stay happy in these times, because it's like no one has any idea what's going on, when it's going to be over, when they can see their families again. But yeah, even if it is a case of you can't get yourself outside, maybe Zoom call or FaceTime a loved one, a friend, speak to people around you, make sure you're not completely by yourself and isolating yourself 24/7. It's really important to kind of keep in contact with people around you.
So we've got it's about the leaving the house, the potentially with exercise. Number 2 there is about the social side and keeping in touch with other people. What about number 3 for people?
I'd say number 3, I would probably focus on younger athletes or younger children or people that are aspiring to be these professional athletes. I would say keep working hard, try and keep motivated during lockdown. As we said earlier, like exercise releases endorphins that'll make you feel better once you've done it, which took me a long time to realise when I was in my little episode of I don't want to leave the house. But it does make you feel better, especially when you have people around you to give you that extra push. But yeah, try and concentrate on what you're doing, what you love. There's always going to be someone there behind you to put you down, but it's whether or not you listen to them, whether or not you let their words put you down, or whether you take them on the chin and think, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. Kind of try and use that negativity as motivation to keep going and keep doing what you love, because there's always going to be someone younger aspiring to be where you are.
Just understand the player bit, their motivations, their expectations, all of that sort of stuff. So definitely get to understand them. What's important to you as a team? Obviously, the players need to be part of it. So, like, how do we roll? That sort of like environmental, culture piece. So that's this is these are the this is the stuff that matters. So I think it'll give like clarity. It'll give people boundaries. And then it would be the last piece we've probably mentioned. Really, I think it's like it starts with care and love, and then you can definitely get into high challenge. Like I'd probably some of the players I've dealt with in the past, like we would have like really high challenge. They'd be trying some amazing stuff and doing amazing stuff, and be like sort of getting better pretty quickly around the challenge stuff. But it was based on high support and high care at the appropriate times.
So mental toughness is a psychological attribute that there is a genetic component, but it can be developed. So that's kind of the first thing. Secondly, we know it can be developed by exposing athletes to pressure, but not just exposing to pressure. You've actually got to teach them strategies to manage the pressure. So strategies that they can perform under, strategies that they can use when they're under pressurized situations. And finally, and I suppose another take-home message would be that when we're, as a coach, psychologist, when working with athletes of different ages, is not to treat them all the same. Just because a high-level professional player may experience certain types of stresses, it doesn't mean to say that, you know, a player even in the same position at a different age group will experience those same stresses. So it's about knowing the athlete, but also knowing about some of the age demographics and some of the factors that may influence how they're feeling. By engaging in those factors, I think as coaches, psychologists, we can really enhance the well-being of athletes.
First thing is understand what success is all the time. Second thing is make sure everyone involved agrees and aligns to what that success is. So having that pre-agreement. Be aware of yourself. Accurately record yourself, find other ways to identify, are you who you think you are in your interaction? And thirdly, make sure that actually, if you're not consistent in supporting change within people and within yourself, change will not happen. Change is uncomfortable. Change takes time. So don't search for quick fixes. Don't search for a model or a video clip that gives you the answers you need. You need to find time to pick one or two things that are the most important things that you recognize to facilitate change and invest in them until they're embedded. Don't go for 20, 30, go for one or two and just work on them and make sure you have effective measures in place to identify, is the change effective, is the change embedded? Because change starts at self. So self-awareness at self, making sure clarity of success, and then making sure if you're going to change, set yourself up success to support the change over time. Be relentless, be patient.
Well, a couple of them we've mentioned already. You know, it's never too late to work on the mental side of the game, because like say Federer was a bit of a hothead until his 20s. Djokovic is still sort of like that, but he can just rebound straight away. Like some people call him, a bit crazy. He goes, I think was it 2 nights ago. He lost a big point and he just kind of put his foot through like the advertising boards, and obviously people know that when he sort of smashed the ball last year and got disqualified because intentionally or not intentionally it hit on the line judges, and so he even the best players, they still have stuff to work on. So it's never too late to kind of start. You can always start improving that side of the game. If it makes you better, then that's what you want. If not, just keep trying to improve in that area, and hopefully then that you'll get that satisfaction of being able to play the game that you, rather than just letting it affect you and just kind of being disappointed and having regret saying, oh, I played that point so badly because I just wasn't very confident. And secondly, all the takeaways are all kind of linked. So you get all the other players that maybe you can tell the top players and the not so top players. And so often we get told he is the next, Federer, or he is the next Djokovic, and they have all the talent in the world according to the coaches and even the peers, the coaches and everyone. And he's got the most talent I've ever seen. So a couple of names that come to mind are Nick Kyrgios and Alex Zverev. Neither of them have really kind of lived up to the potential yet. Hopefully they do at some point. But just showing the difference between having kind of that mindset and not having kind of the optimal mindset. So something to work on. And the last thing, just don't let the result of each shot or even matches be the be all and end all. The most important thing is doing the best we can do to improve every single match, every single point. And spend some time to analyze the thoughts, like I mentioned, really investigate the relationship. What thoughts lead to what actions. Does that, is that going to benefit you in the future? If yes, then keep it. If no, then can we change that to something that's going to benefit you? And then if you keep going and keep doing that, you'll soon have an arsenal of different thoughts that are good for you. And then as soon as something that is not going to benefit you kind of comes up in your head, you'll know straight away, and you can hopefully be capable of switching that off and just thinking what you want to, and have that mindset to play your natural game. And that'd be my last takeaway.
Well, I've not mentioned the word in our conversation so far, but I think first and foremost we need to remember that the game of cricket, like any game, is about having fun, and so trying to maintain that balance between personal goals and objectives, team goals and objectives, and actually enjoying the experience, because cricket is a game, even at T20 level, which takes quite a long time to complete. So you want to enjoy the majority of those moments as much as possible, because you get the opportunity to get to know each other really well in what effectively is a game that probably lasts the best part of 2.5 hours to 3 hours. So fun is absolutely essential. And even as you go up the age groups through teenage years into senior cricket, I think it's really important that we remember this is a game, and the game is supposed to be enjoyed, and the participants are supposed to have fun and look forward to it. So that would be the first thing. I think the second thing is that whilst I probably not used quite the right words, but it's your phrase of managing expectations. So it's recognizing that whether batting or bowling, you're not going to go out and score runs every time. You're not always going to go and take wickets, but you can and will have the opportunity to remember a moment every time you play where it was really special for you. So, and that could be the sound of the ball hitting the middle of the bat. It could be the feeling of elation when you do an amazing piece of fielding that leads to a run out. It could be you bowled a ball that was like Shane Warne's ball of a century. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you scored a 4 or a 6 or scored 100. It doesn't mean that you've taken 5 wickets, but there will be a moment you can cherish. And it's really important that coaches and parents, and I stress it's really important for parents to really encourage the kids to remember those moments to be cherished. And I think the third thing is about this walk of shame for batters, but the same could apply to a bowler, because if you're being hit all around the park and you've got another 3 balls to bowl, you've got to turn to your there's nobody else. You've got to still finish your over. So you turn to your run up, you get to your mark, turn and run in. Same as a batter. If you're out, you're walking back. But remember that you've still got another opportunity to make a contribution, and that whilst it is that in that moment, it is very much an individually almost isolating feeling, that this is when the team element of the sport comes into its own, because that's where your teammates are there to support you emotionally, psychologically and physically, to keep your spirits up and to go again.
The first is work on training and playing processes, your training and playing processes to be able to help you perform the best. This is this is broad, but in some cases it might take you to get a little bit more help with it and get some individual help with this. But that's your first thing. Obviously, your second thing, all of these processes need to be unattached to outcomes, okay? So if your identity is built around cricket right now and scores that you're getting really down on yourself potentially when you've had a bad day or had a bad innings, it's trying to stay unattached to this. The third key point, which this will help boost you as well, is, as I said, get some more help with it. That's the biggest thing that I could say, because a lot of people are stuck. If you can get this, let's say even a young kid is watching this, let's say 13, 14, 15, if you can get onto this now, when you, even just before, if you're hitting the puberty years, the years where you get a little bit self-conscious with yourself, you might be not fully grown or filled out yet. if you get onto this stuff earlier rather than later, this can literally like change your career. Your enjoyment of the game can go up, your scores can go up, the way you act around your team will be better, more friends. We just see in our programs the most like positive influence on not only like cricket but people's like overall lives. So it's, if you haven't got help with this, guys, yeah, like definitely, if it's not me, like reach out to David, reach out to someone else, and just get yourself some more help with it. Yeah,
it definitely does. And I think that, referees are just the same as players. They want to be the best that they can be, and they really care about what they do and the time that they put in. And I think you have to care, because if you're committing that level of time to doing something like being a referee, you need to really care about it. So I think they've got a lot of vulnerability in terms of wanting to do really well, and it puts pressure on them, and it exposes some weaknesses that they've got that they can always improve on. Because what we always say, mental toughness is a scale, and it's something that we can go up and down on, and we do regularly go up and down on, given how factors around our lives are changing. We can get a big boost when we're in love, or we have a wedding, or we have a baby, or we have whatever it might be. But we can also have a real down when somebody dies, or we lose a job, or we, somebody's ill. Things like that can really have that effect, because there's many things that are really important in people's lives that dictate everything else that goes on in their lives. You got to work every day and do your job, but ultimately there are many other factors and assets and facets to your life that mean whether you're good or not. You might get a really big bill to repair your car, which brings you down, and things like that can have a massive impact, maybe for a day, maybe for a week, maybe for a month. But these things can massively have an impact upon you and change the outlook that you have when you go to work and do your job. And obviously, when we're talking about working in this sense, we're talking about your refereeing career.
Sure. I think stay focused on yourself and what you can control is probably the biggest thing. You can't control what your opponent does. You can't control how your opponent's been training, or any intimidation tactics or mind games. You can't control any of that. All you can control is yourself and your response to it. So focus inward with that, I would say. And if things start to get riled up, just take a few deep breaths. Take 6 deep breaths and just let that activation in the brain calm down a little bit, and just recenter yourself first and foremost. In addition to that, I would say having an affirmation or a mantra, or like we said before, a little word, something to cue a specific change for the good in your performance, that could be a good thing. That certainly worked for me before, as I said earlier. Different triggers, different anchors work for different people. It might be something auditory, it might be something that your coach can shout out, or it might be something that you see that might trigger that change. Okay, I see that now, I need to do this. Having those in place, I think, is a good strategy to have as well, because as we've said before, if things are going sideways, if you're fatigued in there or you're hurt, you need something to break out of that. And if you just start getting distracted and just not focusing inward and getting overwhelmed, as you said, David, but in that moment, needs something to break that, needs something to break that state. And some kind of anchor or trigger is probably a good thing, but that needs to be installed, and it needs to be rehearsed and practiced throughout the sort of duration of your training camp, really, so that it becomes an automatic response in the moment when it matters. I think those are probably the biggest things psychologically, I would say.
3 takeaways would be, so I'm living my life now with passion, power, and purpose. So have a look at your life. Are you passionate about what you're doing? And you may not be passionate about what you need to do day to day. So for me, my example, my passion was to become a world champion. But I wasn't really passionate about going running in the rain, the sleet, the snow at 5 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't really passionate about getting punched in the face every day. So, but I was passionate about getting the outcome. So that's one area to look at. Then power. So for us to succeed, we need some inner power. We need to have that inner power. So if you can tap into that and find it and work upon that to fulfill on a purpose, what is it? What is it that you do want? What's your purpose? Because once you can connect with a purpose, the passion and the power, the drive towards achieving it becomes easier. But it's finding it, connecting with it, and tapping into it and driving towards somewhere, not go backwards.
Yeah, I think that you can't leave your mental game to chance and circumstance. I think that, as Jim often says, these are mental skills; they're not magic skills. And I think that he often jokes that he's the last person that an athlete or a coach or a parent or a team will come to. They won't wait, and they like to wait until the wheels are really falling off before considering the mental game. But I think that whether it's with an app like the Champion's Mind, we found that 3, 4, or 5 minutes a day, every day, is like compound interest for your mental game. And it's something that we can all develop. And in terms of a competitive edge, at a certain point, everyone is big, strong, and fast to a certain degree, what we would call in sport functional minimums. Everyone has access to good facilities and to good coaching. So what is it that's going to separate you? And I think that the less you know about mental skills training, actually, the better, because that means that there's 100% of potential there that you can tap into. And so maybe it's something that you've struggled with, like your confidence or your mental toughness, and you start there. Maybe it's something that you're more interested in, kind of that mind-body connection. So as Jim alluded to earlier, how can your breath give you a way to check in on your state and then to alter your state in just a couple of minutes? Maybe it's something like, for me, I've always struggled with visualization, was never able to get it down very well as an athlete. So maybe you start there, and then you'll start to realize that there's this whole world of untapped performance. And not everyone was born with Usain Bolt's fast twitch muscle fiber profile or stride length. Not everyone can serve like Serena Williams, but you can learn to think like these people, like these high performers. And doing so, it may not seem like a lot, but again, 3, 4, 5 minutes a day, just start paying into that account daily. Make it either, maybe it's something that you struggle, like Jim and I struggle to get up in the morning and get going. Okay, well, maybe you start your day with some goal setting. How am I going to be a champion today? And then at night, how was I a champion today? And how am I going to be a champion tomorrow? Maybe in the evening, you spend a few minutes on breath work, particularly if you're someone like me that's pretty hard driving and struggles to come down at night. So maybe that's where it is. And just like your workouts, find the time of day that you either have the greatest need or the greatest opportunity or both, commit to it, and start a mental skills training practice, and you'll be amazed where it takes you.
No, I couldn't agree more. Let's face it, if you can lift 10 kilos and you want to try and lift 100 kilos, then yeah, you've got to do that 5 minutes or 30 minutes a day, whatever it is, and you'll do it. And yeah, it's exactly the same with when it comes to mindset. And as you say, there's just so many facets to mental toughness and trying to develop that mindset. So yeah, Jim, what about yourself? What would your key takeaway be?
I think a key takeaway along the lines of kind of what Phil said is our mental framework is really everything. Perception is 9/10 reality. And what I mean by that is most of us tend to look at life as a series of threats that we hope to avoid, or things that we probably should do, but what we don't want to do. And that's what we call settling for silver. And so it's really about thinking gold, living a gold medal life, daily acts of excellence, and to help us reach those goals. But really trying to really explore what's possible for ourselves. And so I think that's a good question: is what's possible? If something doesn't happen well, okay, what's possible now? If something does happen well, man, what's even possible that maybe I thought was impossible that I could accomplish now. But daily acts of excellence, we tend to be, most of us tend to be procrastinators, and we all have a negativity bias, in terms of always kind of looking at the bad side of things for more survival rather than success. And so really fighting that through mental skills training, thinking like a champion, being more optimistic, better body language, visualizing our success and the steps that it takes to achieve that success. And, really just enjoying challenges and seeking them out, inviting them and using them as an opportunity to show what we're made of, and really rise to the occasion in those circumstances rather than caving in and saying, oh, this is too hard or this isn't fair.
Sure. Number one, and this is one I've said many times, so I think people might already got it, but I'll say it again. A professional is always prepared ahead of time. No professional shows up to a situation and is seeing something for the first time. I don't care if you're a professional speaker, if you're an author, if you're a salesperson, if you're an athlete, you are prepared ahead of time for everything that could possibly occur. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect at it, but you're not surprised by anything. Professional is never surprised in a moment of performance. Number two is in your preparation, you want to get yourself ready for everything that could possibly come up. So, for example, you ever see the TV show Shark Tank on ABC?
I'd say
entrepreneurs try to sell their business. Okay, so
seen similar programs.
Yeah, they have similar ones in different countries, but there's a show where entrepreneurs come on the show and they present their business and they try to get an investment or they try to sell their company to these people with a lot of money. And the thing is, the entrepreneurs, the sharks, they will start asking this person questions. So I'm standing there and there's 6 guys who have all this money and they start hitting me with questions. So how much does it cost to get a customer? How much are you spending on advertising? How much money are you making on this? What's your revenue? They ask all these questions. And what would happen sometimes is that the entrepreneur who's trying to sell their business or get an investment, they would get hung up on a question. They would not have an answer to a question. And the sharks would just be looking at them crazy. Like, man, you got all the way here to this TV show and you can't answer a question about your own business. So what are you doing? How'd you even get here? And the thing is, the people who are most successful on that show were not necessarily because they had the best business, is because they had answers to the questions. They knew their business. They understood what was happening and they knew what was coming. So they were ready for it ahead of time. So this is another form of preparation. And the third thing that I would tell people is you have to get out there and get active. Even though we know we've had the lockdowns, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, over the last year plus, and we're all on Zooms and we're using our live streaming and our apps and our phones because maybe you're nervous about being around human beings. If you're going to be a professional and a high level performer in this life, you have to get out of the house. Now, you can't do it all through your phone. You can't do it all virtually. You have to go out to where people are actually at, and you have to be there in the fire. You got to jump in the crucible and you have to deal with it. That's the only way that you're going to be ready to deal with, quote unquote, real life that alters the lab test, because it may feel like a lab test when you're just doing everything virtually and preparing and everything is controlled and set to your settings. But you got to go out there to where things are random. Nobody really cares about how you practice and how you prepared and what you were expecting. They're going to throw it at you how they throw it at you. And if you can't respond to that, then you're probably not going to win. And what I like to tell people is that controlled environment is not always going to be in place. As I said, real life alters the lab test. And when something gets thrown at you, you have to be ready to deal with it. Life is not set up to work on your terms and on your schedule. And I'll say the last thing, in life, you need exposure, not protection. So you want to expose yourself. The more you get exposed, the stronger you become. As long as the exposure doesn't kill you, you get stronger. I mean, there are cliches all around that. So you need to get yourself out there and get exposed.
In these 4 episodes together with the guests on the show, we've created over 150 bits of advice for you. Far too many for me to summarize in a few minutes. So all I'm going to say, again, is a big thank you to all the guests that I've had on the show to date for their insights. Personally, I know I've benefited an awful lot from this, and I'm aware from your messages that they've positively influenced you too, which is fantastic and is what it's all about ultimately. Moving forwards, I've mentioned a number of times that I'm keen to improve the show. I've received a number of messages from different people in terms of what they'd like to hear moving forwards, and I'm taking those messages on board. If you've got anything to share, please do get in touch with me and let me know. I'm also walking the walk, not just talking the talk. I've spent some time so far reflecting on what you've heard so far on the podcast. I've dug into the literature around mental toughness, resilience, and performance psychology in general. And I'm really keen to explore some other avenues that are going to help you, which we haven't touched on so far. So here's to the next 100 episodes. I hope the journey is as much fun as it's been so far. Enjoy your day. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.